There'll be something about Dartmoor.
This is an audiobook movie by Poor Person Productions, written and read by Dave Tor. The book was published with copyright in 2008. This audio portion of the book copyright 2018 and was edited and produced by Dave Tor. That's me. And now,
There'll be something about Dartmoor. Yes.
It's 12:35 a.m. Thursday, here on the moors of Dartmoor, in the Princetown area of southern England. It's a dark, foreboding, moonless night, just the kind of night Jack Harwich likes to go lamping on, walking upon the rutted landscape with his rifle in hand and a hooded torch taped to the barrel of his gun. He's searching out the glowing red eyes of rabbits that look at the light. He has 3 in his pouch already and wants just one more before returning to his wife back at their home, less than a mile away. Then his light catches 2 red demon eyes looking at him. So, quickly taking aim, he squeezes the trigger. A shot rings out across the moors as the farmer doesn't miss, and the rabbit never knew what hit it. He walks across the bushy, rutted landscape to retrieve his kill. As he does so, using the beam of his torch to light up the ground in front of him, it flashes across something white and red. "What?" saying aloud as he stares down upon a sheep that had been slaughtered. But not just killed in the way a fox or big cat may do it, but something much more sinister. On closer inspection, he's aghast, seeing the animal had been eviscerated in a way he'd never seen before. Looking at it is making Jack feel queasy, as he knows this poor creature did not die humanely, seeing the marks on the ground around it of how it was kicking and trying to get away from its attacker. The animal was opened up from the top of the neck to the middle of its backbone by something that had melted into it like some kind of acid. With his torch he can see that where the heart, lungs, and intestines should be are now gone, having gutted many a sheep himself. His curiosity is increasing, seeing that they weren't ripped or cut out with a knife, but there's hardly any blood to be seen. The sheep's eyes are open with its tongue hanging 4 inches out of its mouth onto the ground. Feeling upset as he rears sheep on his farm, Jack angrily remarks, "Bloody hell! What could have done this here?" Suddenly a shiver runs down his spine. Then there's a sound. One like Jack has never heard before on the moors. At least, that's what he thinks. He knows something is out there, and it's not an owl that's got him concerned. So he begins walking backwards, still searching with his torch for whatever it is over the immediate moorlands. He does this for about 20 seconds. Seeing and hearing nothing, Jack takes out his cell phone and gives his friend Tony Tressler a call. Tony hears the ringtone of his cell phone go off, repeating Beethoven's just as he's finished submitting the paperwork from doing his business in the loo, located in his barn, where he was checking on a horse that's close to giving birth. He quickly buttons up his blue 501 Levi's, blushes, and not worrying about washing his hands, leaves the bathroom. Hurriedly, he walks the 10 feet to where his ringing phone is sitting on a table next to some horse tack, still repeating Beethoven's Fifth. "Hello, Jack. I'm up late. Was him lapping?" Tone, I seen him. Well, I seen something. I don't know, Tone. You busy now? What's up, Jack? What you seen? Don't know, Tone. It's out here on the moors lamping and come across sheep that been killed. Tisn't like anything I ever seen before. Never seen a sheep killed like that. Just horrible, I tell you. I think there's something out here that ain't human. I could hear him, smell him, but see nothing. Don't know, Tom, but I know it ain't no one of those big cats. It'd be one of Mike Wilson's. Open him up from the back of the ear along the spine, Then something that melted into it. No, never seen nothing like it. Wait a second, there's that noise again. I can smell it. Oh, bugger, what a stink. Where are you two? Not far from Willow and Moreland Junction. Hang on a minute, Tone. There'll be something here. Getting closer. Tony can't quite believe what he's hearing, knowing Jack doesn't joke around with serious matters. Then the line goes dead. Earlier that evening, it's 9:35 p.m. here at the Plume of Feathers Inn, which is a traditional English pub/restaurant/B&B located next to the B3212 road that runs through Princetown here in the southwest part of England in an area near enough the center of Dartmoor. Inside the pub, no one knew that this friendly night out at their local, listening to one of the regulars repeating a well-worn tale, would soon become too close to the truth. So in his gravelly, rasping voice, the musty old, wizened, gray-bearded man, wearing his well-worn brown overcoat, his hand-me-downs and charity shop clothes, known locally as Everard, speaks in his Devonian accent to those listening.
There'll be something about Dartmoor, and it'll be sparking thoughts of fear.
So says this old gent of the road of many years of wear and tear. He does so in hopes that someone will buy him another pint of cider, as he elaborates further to those who are listening, especially to the tourists who are easily drawn in by his character and a sense of making them feel sorry for him as he continues.
Many legends be told in folklore, not surprising once you've heard them. Can't help but feel energies reaching up if he walks across the moors. Something else out there, and ain't human. These ways, not be thy strange prince that leaves behind. Oh, not natural that. 'Tis out there, though, I tell you. Got a thirst on it, crazed man that do true.
He wipes a leaky dewdrop from the end of his nose onto the back of his black right-hand fingerless glove and sniffs.
Didn't in no way known to us, though. Yeah, still out there looking for our next feed.
He turns to a well-dressed lady in her early 40s.
Never know, my dear. Nothing says it won't be you next. Yes.
His words are said with a certainty of someone who must surely know about what he speaks of. Go ahead, missy. Buy the silly old git a pint of cider. He'll tell you anything. Slight laughter and chuckles are heard, so she buys him a pint, being a tourist, and wanting to be part of the enjoyable, relaxing, peaceful night out at the pub. Later, back on the moors, from a voice inside his head that can't be ignored, Tony feels his friend is in a serious situation as a sense of horror begins to overwhelm his thoughts. Quickly, he calls the local constabulary to report a mugging which he thinks may have happened to his friend. Speaking to the desk sergeant, Tony tells him where he's going to meet Jack, or where he thinks he is. As Tony is talking to the officer, he quickly hurries into the house and gets a few things, then back outdoors to see if he can help his friend. Still, with cell phone in hand, he tells the officer, Yeah, thanks. Just hurry, mate. Jumps into his Land Rover, putting his shotgun and torch on the passenger seat, starts up the vehicle and quickly drives the half-mile to the junction of Willow and Moreland Roads to look for his friend. The desk sergeant informs patrolmen Gary Winden and Billy Pierce to check out Tony's complaint, as the two officers are about 10 minutes away, parked alongside the B3357 at Two Bridges. Pierce, who is driving, starts up their patrol car, checks his rearview mirrors, then pulls out onto the two-lane road heading towards Princetown at speed. Being only half a mile away, it takes Tony less than a minute to reach the junction in his Land Rover. where he quickly pulls over onto the right side graveled shoulder, coming to a sliding stop. Grabs hold of his single-barreled shotgun and torch, then rapidly gets out of his vehicle, leaving the headlights on so as to let Jack know he's here. Searching around the immediate area with his flashlight, he sees and hears nothing, so begins walking along Moorland Road up to the junction with Willow, calling out for his mate. "Jack! Jack! Where are ye?" Then, the two patrolmen reach the turnoff for the Dartmoor Way just before the Plume of Feathers Inn. Making a left onto it from the main road, Officer Pierce drives for half a mile, then makes a turn right onto Willow. This takes him in the direction of the junction, now just a little over a mile along. There aren't any streetlights along these few desolate roads that snake across the moors, so Tony should easily see the patrol car headlights when they come over the rise. Tony is now searching along Willow Road, not far from the junction with Moorland. With a shotgun in one hand and torch in the other, he's looking for where Jack may have fallen. Suddenly trips over something and falls to the ground, dropping his gun and flashlight. "Ouch! What the?" Grabbing hold of his torch, a look of horror comes across his face as he sees something much worse than his worst nightmares lying on the ground before him, which is what's left of Jack's body. He's quite sure it's his friend by the distinctive 1980s AC/DC rock band patches sewn onto his waterproof jacket. Looking at his wounds, Tony quickly realizes there's nothing he can do for his friend who's lying motionless on the rocky ground along the side of the road, his head to one side with eyes open, and a horrible look of fright upon his face. His back has been partly melted down the middle, where the spinal column is, and right through his clothes. Moving his light over the body, he can clearly see that the top half of his spine from the base of the skull is gone, but unbeknownst to Tony, so is most of Jack's brain and internal organs. He has a strong stomach, but this almost makes him want to puke, so he has to look away. Then a somewhat familiar sound is heard that isn't owls or moorland wildlife wandering around, that doesn't seem to be too far away. A bolt of fear instantly runs up and down his spine as instinct takes over. In great haste, Tony runs back up the road towards Rover's Park. His mind is racing. Scary visions from his childhood come flooding back to haunt him. He thinks. Without warning, something has latched on and attached itself to Tony from behind. It's done this with enough force that it knocks him to the ground. Face first, his nose is broken and blood begins to stream out. In a cloudy consciousness, he tries to move his arms to push himself back up to his feet. But Tony is unable to do this because of the weight of what's holding him down, which he can feel is as big as he is, but 3 times as heavy and as strong. The fear of death is beginning to take over Tony's mind as he struggles to free himself from whatever has got a hold of him, but he can't. It feels like arms with no hands that have firmly taken hold around his upper chest and abdomen. And there's a god-awful smell. He thinks it's distinctly familiar. Tony screams out as he feels something burning into the base of his skull and where his spine is between the shoulder blades. The pain is intolerable. He screams out, but no sound is heard as he's now unable to move, but still aware of what's around him. There's that noise again, he can hear, thinking to himself. But that's the last thing Tony will remember of this life, as he now rapidly loses his awareness of reality, and soon will finally be able to leave behind the pain and fear that has so suddenly grown ever more intense. His body is limp. Again, earlier that day, on a secluded part of the moors is found Tom Lansdowne, living in an over 200-year-old 2-story stone-built house with his dog Purty. He's not a farmer, as is most of the other families that own properties here on the moors, but a scientist and inventor who's built a domed observatory atop one corner of the house that sits over his workshop. But all of what people know about Tom is that he was left an inheritance, a university graduate, and one who dabbles on the stock market when not looking at the stars with his telescope. All except his best friend John Cornish, who knows more than others, but not all of what Tom is really about just yet. And tonight he has just finished completing and installing his latest invention, one he calls the Telescopic Voyager. It's a telescope unlike any ever created, as it's powered by a small cold fusion reactor that drives a nanomicroprocessor guidance aligner, which is able to create a tachyon beam, as Tom calls them, into a wormhole lens which is able to see in real time with total clarity anything it looks at up to 13.7 billion light years away, and even beyond that if all works as planned. The instrument will be able to look straight through space, much as the crow flies, seeing whatever comes into its field of view when focused, and not be affected by time-space gravitational distortions as it operates in other dimensions along with this one. The tachyon wormhole lens with its view field will be able to move through space not just at the speed of light, but more so at the speed of sight, as Tom sees it. This is because the cold fusion reactor brings about minuscule nuclear reactions at the subatomic particle level, creating mini black holes, and being able to control them with a high intensity and very focused magnetic field. This in turn is able to create tachyon particles that are controlled within the guidance aligner and then projected almost unnoticed anywhere the telescope is pointed to the sky. All this is encased in a black titanium carbon fiber composite materials and is fully functional in any position while being able to safely generate vast amounts of controlled energy. Forgetting that he was to meet his friends for their weekly get-together at their local, the Plume of Feathers, Tom has finally finished creating his magnificent telescope and is now ready to watch on the 65-inch viewing monitor what he wants to see upwards and beyond the moors. It's 8:59 p.m. Wednesday evening, back here at the Plume of Feathers, where Tom usually joins his friends for a quiet midweek's drink and discuss putting the worlds to right. John Cornish, a local artist who is Tom's closest friend, sits at their usual table with Brian Comby, a warden at the prison, and his girlfriend Jenny, along with Tony Tressler, a local farmer, and bespectacled Connor Bray, who is a grade school teacher. The flamboyant dresser John Cornish finally speaks after a 15-minute silence.
I say, old chums, I think Tom has got his head in the universe again. Not a cloud in the sky tonight. So I take it our old amigo is a no-show from past experience.
The other four friends just nod their heads in agreement and continue to sip their drinks until someone else thinks of something to say. With his new telescope now ready, Tom connects the 12 gold pin wire connectors from the computer to the guidance aligner, and with that accomplished, now fully opens up the dome and looks up at the heavens. He depresses the B key gently, and almost instantly he can hear a low-level humming noise from the guidance aligner, along with little clicks and beeps, then a slight whir sound as the cold fusion reactor starts up and the instrument springs into operation for its first mission. Tom keeps an eye on the readouts on the master control screen displays, making sure all the 32 LED lights are in the green that should be, and no warning message is being flashed up. Again, checking his master panel, everything is still green to go, as all the viewing monitors now go jet black. 20 minutes later, back at the Plume of Feathers, Tom's friends are still waiting for one of them to speak. Good, Tom thinks, and with the click of the mouse, puts into the computer the first program with the coordinates for the telescope to focus onto. After doing so, he only needs to use the joystick to move the telescopic Voyager around through space. He starts out with small steps before leaping across the universe to see what's on the other side. Barely hearing the servos kick in to align the telescope, he keeps an eye on the control panel indicator lights and is ready to use the joystick with everything seeming to be working just as he had programmed them to do so. The high-precision servo motors almost silently move the instrument with pinpoint accuracy to the selected target. The telescopic Voyager almost stops, but doesn't, as it continually compensates for the target and the Earth's rotation. Finally, all the TV screens springing to life. Whoa, Pertz, look at that! On the large screen is a live picture looking down onto Victoria Crater. Halfway down one side can be seen the Mars rover, where its power system failed for some unknown reason he recently heard about on the news. He looks with eyes wide open in amazement down onto the reddish surface of Mars, seen from about 200 feet above its landscape. The telescope is constantly being corrected by the computers for the Earth and Mars movements, so as to keep the picture still and in focus. He easily sees the rover. With the joystick, he zooms the wormhole lens in closer, to about 10 feet above it. Blimey, look at that. Now I know why the rover died. Don't think they saw that one coming, Pertz. Tom can clearly see that a small meteorite had hit the rover just behind its cameras and punctured a 3-inch hole clean through it. Hey, Pertz, you think NASA would be interested in this information? Nah. Tom has a little laugh to himself, as sure they would like to know what happened to their rover, but would want to know the even more important question of how he knew what happened to it. And that's something Tom doesn't trust any authorities to know just yet, if ever. Suddenly the picture goes reddish-brown as a half-mile wide dust devil swirls into view, obscuring the surface of Mars he's looking at. Tom is overwhelmed by how well all is working, but controls his excitement and is hungry to see more. There will be time later to dwell on places he wants to look at longer, but first he needs to see how well his invention operates and its limits before studying one place in greater detail. He picks a galaxy 31 million light-years away and types in the information he has from what he's learned of it from Earth-based telescopes. The computers are able to track its movement and are able to guide the telescope's wormhole lens to the part of space it's found in today. So now, with his target lined up, all he needs to do is go straight forward to get to the M51 galaxy. So very slowly begins to turn the stick, making the wormhole lens zoom 29 million light-years ahead. Tom stops zooming and comes to a halt. From this distance, he can see the long lanes of stars and gases laced with dust in and around the spiral arms, and looking at what no Earth-based telescopes can see with this clarity and getting so close. With a gentle turn of the stick, he rapidly moves to within 2 light-years of the center and sees something that's absolutely astonishing because of the filters the wormhole lens has, which is to lessen the bright lights of so many suns at this close distance. Tom is blown away by the blacker-than-black round shape in the middle of all the beautiful bright lights that the combined stars around it are giving off, as the telescope filter make it possible to see what's within the radioactive blinding light. He sees stars as close as 10,000 miles apart, but look like they're right on top of each other, creating a blast furnace effect of radiation and heat that nothing can survive within 10 AUs of. The man of the hour is transfixed, watching the huge black ravenous monster that must be the size of a solar system, steadily sucking everything around it into the center of his picture in a never-ending conveyor belt of stars, planets, and everything else that disappears into a singularity, as all is overwhelmed by its gravity. The stars and all other material are stretched apart, break into stellar crumbs, most which swirl into the black abyss and disappearing at the event horizon. The area around it appears warped because of how the gravity from it makes things act like water going down the plug hole in a bath. It's twisting, distorting, compressing light along with anything else that may get close to it, anything that is except the wormhole lens of the telescopic Voyager. Twisting the stick, Tom slowly zooms back out 5 light-years so as to see better where he wants to begin searching in one of the outer arms. Studying it for a few moments, he makes a decision, then moves the joystick to the left and zooming in at the same time. Finally, he gets within half a light-year, where it's now possible for the telescope to distinguish which stars have solar systems, so stops to have a look to see where there may be planets. The telescope's wormhole lens has the ability to act like a type of infrared sonar. When switched on, to Find Planet mode, it allows Tom to distinguish planets from moons and asteroids up to half a light year away by detecting the hot molten cores of planets that are going around stars. It also measures planet sizes and registers surface temperatures. It's 11:05 p.m. and the four friends here at the Plume of Feathers are saying their goodbyes as the closing time bell has rung. With handshakes and hugs, they say goodnight until next week, when they'll continue their discussion in putting the world to rights, then drive off home. There, that planet in that solar system right there where I'm pointing, Pertz. That core signature is quite similar to Earth's. Should be a good place to start looking. He stops 1/5 of a light year above a solar system that's almost face-on and can easily detect 8 molten cores of planets stretched out before him that are staggered in orbits around their sun. Markers have popped up on the screen of one of the monitors showing where each planet is. The planets come into view encircled by the markers with information about each one under its circle. Moving to the 4th planet, that's about the same distance Mars is from our Sun, so zooms in to about 20,000 miles from its surface. The first world he looks at outside of our own solar system, not a long time ago, but right now, in another galaxy far, far away, is a very green-looking world with a weather system easily seen from this distance. Tom's inner excitement grows, as he's the first Earth person to look at another living world with such clarity. He moves the joystick ever so slightly forward, and the wormhole lens brings the planet closer to him. Finally breaking through the clouds, he can see the green landscape spreading to the horizon in all directions as he continues to move closer to the surface. "Wow, Pertz, look at those colorfully weird plants," he tells his dog, but Pertz is more interested in a doggy chew biscuit as Tom tells him, "I want to see this closer." Driving along, John would go home, but his good lady and better half Ryoko won't be home till Monday from a trip with friends to Turkey, so decides maybe his best friend Tom could use his help with someone watching him doing his stargazing, and heads off in his direction. Still zooming in towards the planet and the strange plant life Tom can see, wonders if there are any animal life forms roaming around, but one thing at a time. As he moves closer, he's amazed at the size of these plants that have mysterious dark holes in them that are big enough for a man to crawl into. He moves the wormhole lens to within a few feet of the plant or tree, as it looks like both, to see what may be living inside of it. If one could see the wormhole lens, then they would see a huge round optical lens that's 50 meters across, so it takes in a lot of area of what it's looking at. Also, Tom is terribly curious of what it would sound like where the lens is looking, so turns on the microphone. As he listens, he can see what looks like blinking eyes in some of the holes and wonders what kind of life forms exist inside this huge tree that this planet is populated with. He moves the lens to within inches of the central hole to see what there is inside if possible, but sees nothing for now. He looks at the clock on the wall and sees it's 11:35 p.m. and Tom is so excited and pleased with his discoveries that he now feels a need to share with someone. One person to have this knowledge and not share it would be rather pointless to have it all, because the real value of this information is in sharing it with others, and Tom just has to tell someone, somebody other than his dog. Of all his mates and the people he knows, John Cornish is the only one he can truly trust to keep his secret safe when he shows him his discoveries, as he's already mentioned a few things to John in What If Talk, but without showing him any of his inventions or giving his game away just yet. So he takes his cell phone out of his pocket. It's only a matter of seconds before he hears the phone ringing at the other end. Well, if it isn't my delightful old friend Tom Lansdowne. I say, dear fellow, seen any big-name stars as of late? Why, of course, mate. Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's a real big-name star with lots of letters in it. And you know I know. only the biggest with my connections. In fact, the stars are so good tonight, I'd like to share them with you, John. Only you, John. So, can you get your ass over here, say, 10 minutes ago? I really would like to show them to you. The dog suddenly looks up, sniffs the air, and quickly goes downstairs growling. Being intrigued by the sound of Tom's cryptic use of words and knowing there's a hidden meaning, replies back as sometimes great minds think alike. It's funny you should say that, my good man. Then I looked up at the sky and thought of you. Then I thought I'd come round to say hello to my old amigo, since it was nice of me to think of you. In fact, letting the truth be known, I'm pulling up to your abode right now. So I say, my good man, are you going to let me in or what? These two good friends have always had a mental connection, almost as though they knew each other from a past life. So with a chuckle, I'm coming down, mate. He also turns the TV monitors off before going downstairs, but leaves the recorders still running. Just as he leaves the room, 4 of the LED lights go from green to red for 3 seconds, then back to green again. Then the door opens and his flamboyant friend greets him, first being the more outgoing one, but looks can be deceiving. I say, old chum, are we having fun this night? We missed you down at the Feathers. I'm sure you did. Come out of the cold and join me, John. I know how easily you can get a cold from the cold. Come, warm yourself up. There's a little something I'd like to show you upstairs. And you better believe we're going to have a great deal of fun tonight. John smiling in and closes the door behind him. Achoo! So sorry, my good man. Didn't mean to sneeze over you like that. Hopefully I haven't shared my cold with you again. And you're right. I get these damn things too easily. Wouldn't be the first time. I realize that, old chum, but that's what friends are for. You never know when a cold could come in handy. Tom continues to look at him with a grave face. I was only saying. So, Thomas, let's acquire these teas. 5 minutes later, just as their teas are ready, Tom sneezes. Achoo! Blowing his nose, they then, with their cups of tea in hand, go upstairs with John following his good friend to the observatory. Not far now, says Officer Wyndon, as his partner slows the car down in case they see anybody that could be a potential mugger or that needs help if they're along Willow Road, so are cruising along at 20 miles an hour, not being totally sure where along the road the victim is. There. Yep, there's Tone Grover. See him anywhere, Gar? They must be around here somewhere. Searching along the roadside on their left as they approach the junction, both unexpectedly see something just ahead of the parked Land Rover. In a blink of an eye, for a split second, they see something on top of Tony, holding him down to the ground, face first. The two officers could only describe it to each other as some kind of unfamiliar, dark, large, green, glutinous shape that moved almost instantly when the light touched it. You see what that was that ran off? Some kind. I can't really say what it was we saw, other than a good-sized animal of some sort. Then they quickly get out. Then suddenly, to their surprise, they hear, Tony groans and starts to lightly quiver and shake. Oh, dear Jesus, look at that! Hey, he's still alive! Quick, call an ambulance! Tone, can you hear me? Well, what did this to you? Whoa, what's that smell? All Tony can do is moan incoherently as his arms and legs begin to quiver and shake because some of his brain matter had been sucked out of his head, which has rendered him unable to think clearly, if at all, as his blood pours out from his wounds. Within 2 minutes of arriving on the scene of the crime, Tony's last breath leaves his body, never realizing why. Checks for a pulse, finds none, then looks back up to tell Billy, he's dead. Get a blanket from the boot. Let's cover him up. Any wild animals will try and have a go, so set out some flares and put it around the body as well. Because of the suspicious nature of Tony's demise, he tells Dave to get a SACO team, scene of the crime officers, out here to investigate. Standard procedure for unknown deaths, of which it's been a few years since anything like this has been reported up here. Because of this, the crime scene will receive a lot of attention, so the two officers begin protecting the area and wait for more of their colleagues to arrive.
You doesn't believe all that airy hands and pixies and goblins and Lord knows what else rubbish, do you?
I reckon there's some truth in it, Bill. There are loads of people have seen things over the years up here, and I can tell you this don't look right. Not at all.
Yeah, well, those storytellers in the past probably been on the magic mushrooms or pissed up walking home seeing all sorts in the dark. I believes it when I sees it for myself.
Well, what we see of those puncture holes in the back of poor old Tone, you know they don't look right. You know what kind of animal would do that? That smell also. Nothing I ever smelled up here before. Whoa.
Well, I believe we saw someone who knew where to go and was quick about it, pointing his torch. There are many ravines out there on the moors to hide in, and it looks like they used some kind of tool to kill him with. As for the smell, there's probably some dead animal around here.
Let's see what Socko comes up with, I guess, Bill.
Meanwhile, back at Tony's farm, his wife Dawn is awoken by a feeling of dread and that something is terribly wrong. She then hears a crashing sound from downstairs that emanated from the kitchen. Not knowing that Tony has left to help Jack Harwich, dismisses her thought of dread and thinks Tony is being his clumsy self again, so rolls over and goes back to sleep, but not for long. Tom enters and takes his seat at the control console where he was sitting. Following from behind, John enters the room and stops to have a look around. Ah, I see you've been busy with that oxygen-making machine of yours again. Yep, got it working proper this time. I more than solved the problem. One never knows when one will need one of them. In fact, I've been putting together a lot of ideas lately. As he looks further around the place, he then sees the all-new black telescope and remarks in one of his many swaggered voices, "Very nice. New high-tech toy, eh?" Tom smiles with pride as he sees John walk over to it, but steps in a very shallow wet spot about 4 inches across on the floor next to the telescope. He stops, looks down, and removes his foot from it. "I say, Tom, I think your dog drooled on the floor here." He touches it with the toe of his shoe. Ew. Then looks up at the open dome. Either that or something blew in through that opening. Some night bird on a bombing run, possibly. More than likely, Purdy got excited hearing you arrive. I'll take care of that. Don't need no dog or us traipsing back through it. Funny, though, I thought Pertz was downstairs with us. Nah, must have come up here when we were making tea. Doesn't usually drool this bad, and Pertz never takes a piss or dump in the house. Ah, no biggie. So tell me, my good man, will I be able to see my house from here with this? I assume it is a telescope. No eyepiece, and I can barely make out that there's some kind of beam leaving the end of it. Looks like dark light, I guess, going up into the sky. Very strange telescope. Ah, maybe it's not a telescope you have here. I assume it's something you did make. Achoo! Why, yes, I did. Huh, you don't miss much. Okay, so for this, whatever it is, I should have been here 10 minutes ago? Well, you're here now, and that's all that matters. Because you're really going to enjoy this. It may even give you new ideas for what to paint next, let's say. As an artist, John is always interested in new sources for inspiration. He likes doing abstracts mixed with bizarre realism, which gives his paintings a fresh new way of expressing ideas with a certain edginess that makes his artwork very unique and worth a few bob. Okay, Thomas, now let's just stop the piss balling about and show me what you have. Tom points his right forefinger at the large screen, then depresses the key on the keyboard. The screen quickly comes to life, showing the close-up of a hedge with strangely configured tangled limbs, creating dark passageways leading into the plant. At first, John can't understand what the big deal or what exactly he's looking at. Ah, a close-up of a distorted thorn bush, I see. Now, what kinds of ideas come to the mind from looking at that? Well, I must say, Thomas, I'm not really terribly impressed so far. Tom pulls back from the plant in 2 seconds to reveal the colorful landscape below. Is this any better? What? You're looking at a planet some 31 million light years from Earth in real time. Well, in that case, my good man, I'm impressed. My God, Thomas, you really did it. I dare say a Nobel Peace Prize would be in the offing for this. Shit. Give me a second. It's hard to believe that picture's coming from so far away. I say, old chum, by chance, are you pulling my leg? How could that be in real time when nothing travels faster than the speed of light, from what I've been taught? I found a way to travel not at the speed of light, but at the speed of sight, as I like to call it, or warp factor 9, 10, 11, and beyond. It can see to the other side of the universe in seconds. You see, I've discovered how to create tachyon particles, which in turn has allowed me to create what I call a wormhole lens that can see straight through the universe using the particles bundled up together, one might say, in creating the lens. Because of the particle's ability to be visible and invisible at the same time, as it operates in another dimension within ours, so is protected from anything in this reality. Tachyon dimensional lensing, as I call it. I could explain it better in scientific terms, but it's easier to understand in layman's terms, the language of your people. By Jove, then you've really done it, haven't you? The language of my people, aye? To be honest with you, I can clearly see the words and understand them instantly in my head, but to say a lot of those big words and numbers is a pain in the mouth. So that's why I took a course at the university in layman's talk. It was the equivalent to the Rosetta Stone, and now you can understand what the fuck I'm on about. They both burst out laughing for a few seconds, then Tom continues. Yes, I've really gone and done it now, and you're looking at the proof there on the TV screen. That picture's from 1,000 feet above the surface of a planet in one of the outer arms of the Whirlpool Galaxy M51. You know, mate, I guess being the second human to look at the surface of another planet makes you an explorer. So I am. Thanks for the help. I always knew you were a bloody genius, but my God, this is just downright fucking smart. This is something that hordes of scientists would spend decades and billions of pounds to invent. And you did this all alone here on your own? Best way. It's what I do. Widely known knowledge of an instrument like this would have people at my door day and night. But worst, in the day and age, I just know there are those who would kill for such a device for the wealth and power it could bring, as well as those who would want to keep it silent. That's why no one, and I mean no one other than you, has a clue what I've really been doing here on my own in my own home. It's decades ahead of its time. Are you quite sure about that? Oh yes, it's safe. I'm quite sure of it. So, my friend, are you ready to see more of what no man has seen before? Tom explains to John more of how his invention works technically, as they explore some of the universe in hopes of learning what no man yet knows, and finding what he's after. But where to look? That question Tom seeks to answer as quickly as possible. 14 minutes later, 3 patrol cars arrive with 6 officers, along with Sacco investigation team in a black Range Rover. They're led by the Chief Medical Investigation Officer, Dan Hawk, and accompanied by his assistant, Mary Oakley, and Chris Davies, who are also pathologists. It isn't long before they have changed into their clean white plastic overalls and begin looking for clues as to who or what had killed the farmer Tony Tressler. With the other officers now on the scene, they get back into the patrol car and drive off down the road to inform Tony's wife Dawn of her husband's death. While Sacco work on and around the body, 4 of the other officers are out searching the area in an ever-expanding circle, looking for the clues that might help answer what has happened out here in this early morning darkness. Dan asks Chris, who's kneeling over the body, for an evaluation of the cause of death. Any ideas what caused these punctures? Think that's what killed him? Pwah, must be a dead animal around here.
Yeah, could be. But I never smelt a carcass like that before, and in all my 16 years of experience, I've never seen anything like these wounds.
Very strange, this. Very odd. What do you make of that wet spot just over there?
Hasn't rained for a week, and I don't see any other puddles around this area. Maybe some animal took a piss. Could even be humankind. I'll take a sample of it. Never know. Could be a clue.
Dan calls out to Officer Oakley, who's searching the area for anything that could be a weapon. Anything yet at your end, Mary?
Sorry, boss. Nothing yet.
Keep looking. There's always something left behind when there's a death. It's 1:56 a.m.
Oh, Miss, Gary Wyndham, local constabulary. You in there?
Still no reply. Gary calls out yet again, knocking on the door and pushing the white button that rings the doorbell. Bing, bong, bong, bing, bong, bong.
Dawn, are you in there? This here is strange. Her car's over there, and I know her kids have school tomorrow. They should all be home, and this racket should have woke them.
After another minute of still no response, so walks around to the back of their 3-story stone-built farmhouse while Billy stays where he's at just in case she does answer the front door. With a torch in his left hand, Gary walks up to the back door and is horrified to find that it has been broken into. Gary gets out his nightstick, not having a gun, enters the house, and then calls out to Billy at the front door that he's quickly coming to open it. He again calls out for Dawn, saying he's in the house, letting Billy in.
I think there's a problem here. The back door has been smashed in.
They both quickly check out the rest of the downstairs, still calling out for Dawn. Not getting any reply or finding anyone, they walk over to the staircase and begin going up to the first floor. Reaching the top landing, they look for the light switch, not knowing where it is, so use their flashlights to check the rooms.
You smell that, Bill? Phew.
Billy walks through an open door on the other side of the hallway, where he sees the Tressler's 8-year-old son, Alfie. Then, from seemingly out of nowhere, his newfound fear of the unknown comes true. Billy tries to yell out, but not very loud. Then, and he goes silent as something heavy cross-checks him from his right side that came out of the darkness, breaking one of his legs as it pushed back, hitting his face on the hardwood floor and cracking his right side cheekbone. Half conscious, he can feel himself helplessly being forced to lay on his face and stomach, then feels 2 hot poking things wiggling their way into the back of his skull and on top of his spine. He tries to scream out again, but there is no sound, as what went into him burnt out his larynx with quick speed. He feels his brain melting and hears a horrible sucking sound of what's taking it. The reality he knew quickly fades away as he lapses into unconsciousness and dies. Gary, in another room down the hall, finds the light switch and clicks it on. At the same time, Billy is attacked and is mortified, discovering the same fate has befallen Dawn as did her husband. He's upset and becoming fearful and can't help but not looking at what has happened to Dawn lying motionless on her bed with her arms outstretched. Worried, he calls out for Billy, but gets no reply.
Bill! Billy! Where are you? Where are you?
Turning to leave the room, he gets on his shoulder radio to call headquarters and report the situation. He enters the dark hallway, still trying to get a response on his radio, when suddenly a movement catches his eye. He looks up to the other end of the hallway and can barely make out a figure of which he thinks is Billy, with his left hand depressing the talk button on the radio and his head cocked over to his right shoulder so as to speak into the microphone. He raises his torch to see if it is his partner, while at the same time radioing headquarters. So far this evening, in such a short period of time, Tom, with John watching in amazement, have viewed worlds Earth's people have no knowledge of, nor ever will, because of the vastness and variety of planets that exist in our mother universe. Tom, smiling, explains further that his telescope operates in 2 different dimensional planes, But there are countless other dimensions as well, he believes, with all others being interlinked by the great singularity, which is what he suspects is at the center of everything. So he hopes to actually detect the elementary particles from which we see the effects caused by the existence of what's called for now dark matter or dark energy, as it's spread throughout the universe. Now, in order for things to happen in any universe that wants to give rise to life, everything has to go round in circles, which is another clue to understanding the blueprint. Galaxies are spinning around. Within them are countless stars that are round, and around them are round planets that are going around their round sun. And around most planets are round moons going around their planets as the planets spin around, as does the stars. Easy, Tiger. I have to say you're getting me dizzy with all this going around in circles talk. Sorry, I was getting carried away, but going around in circles would do that. I guess that's why the expression, what goes round comes round, is so true. But I'm all done going around in circles for now. Tom engages the computer again. It takes only seconds to move millions or billions of light years around in space so as to look at somewhere new. But they're unaware of what's taking place just down the road at this time of the morning. Back at the scene of the crime on the moors, Dan's radiophone crackles into working order with a police frequency call. One of the constables, searching a quarter of a mile south down Willow Road, calls in to report he's found another body. It's that of Jack Harwich.
Holy shit, Gov, worse than the other one. This poor fellow's been drained of most of his blood. His spine has been, I guess, melted in by some kind of corrosive. That same smell, it's here also.
Both men are quite puzzled by what they've seen this night so far. Hearing a noise from the dark, they almost at the same time look up and shine their flashlights out onto the moors. They're quite aware of the Dartmoor legends, but believe that's all that they are. They'd like to believe. In the distance, they hear the hoots of a couple of barn owls talking to each other. Looking back down at the body, Dan asked,
Bloody hell, Chris, any ideas? Wish I did. Really isn't natural, this.
Unaware of what's been happening out on the moors, he feels the telescopic Voyager is ready for its ultimate test, to see how far it can see at the speed of sight. Tom selects a direction in which to aim his telescope, knowing where our galaxy pretty much is in the universe. He targets where he believes is the closest point to an ever-expanding edge of the cosmic horizon. He pushes the B key and the telescopic Voyager comes to life once again with barely a whisper of a sound. Tom depresses the C key now, and they're transfixed by what they see on the screen, as instantly space and the stars come rushing at them at a fantastic speed, but not as fast so as to see colorful galaxies coming into view, then get passed by as the wormhole lens is heading into the direction of the nearest cosmic horizon. After 10 seconds, the cosmic horizon begins to get closer. Tom again checks the data on the telescope's performance and sees that it's all still operating as planned. There are fewer and fewer galaxy clusters to be seen now as they whiz past their field of view. A black wall seems to be filling the TV screen. Quickly the lights go out of any stars to be seen. Finally, the telescopic Voyager leaves our universe ahead of its expansion. Tom switches on the infrared sensors, and the black veil seems to melt away until it's gone, and revealing, "Whoa," they say almost at the same time.
I say, my good man, that's incredible. I've never seen such beauty. I must paint this. But what is it, Tom?
After a moment of contemplation, he replies, It's as I expected, along with many other scientists who feel we live in a multiverse, but what it really looks like is something we can now verify and they can't. Look how it unfolds, John, as we go on. I think what we're looking at is where universes are born and the laws of physics as we know them don't apply here anymore. This may well be the face of God. You can see the intelligence behind this. This is nothing that happens just because the stars align in just the right way, but is self-manufacturing from a singularity where I believe God resides. And that's some place where the telescopic Voyager cannot go, for all we'll see will be nothing. And what that nothing looks like is anybody's guess. But one thing I do know now is that I know nothing looking at this birthplace of all realities.
John finally speaks. I failed you. How could one explain something one needs to actually look upon to understand? But damn you, I say, if I would know how to explain what I'm looking at. Tom stops the telescope from looking any further, as this is as far as it can see, as it cannot see beyond infinity. He checks the data readouts again, and all is functioning normal. So they just sit and watch what happens. It's 3:15 a.m., and sitting in their Range Rover is Dan and his team waiting for the coroner's wagon to arrive. He's also becoming quite concerned as to what has happened to the two Bobbies who went to inform Tony's wife of her husband's demise. He calls over Officer Ted Parker, who's standing nearby the body, to inquire if he knows when the two constables will return. Ted looks at his watch and tells him that they should have been back by now, knowing Tony only lives a short distance away along Moreland Road, and are now becoming more concerned as they haven't answered their radios. Dan asks Ted to go see if they're still at Tony's house and what's been keeping them and why they've not answered when called. He's also told to take an officer with him.
Boy, come on, Frank, let's roll.
Big Ears 3. And on the other side of the world, just west of the international date line, where the Bering Sea meets the North Pacific Ocean, is the 1,200-mile-long archipelago of extinct and active volcanoes known as the Chain of Aleutian Islands of Alaska. About 900 miles west of Anchorage along this chain of islands is located David Island. It's on this outcrop of land that a highly top-secret United States government military installation listening post is located, and codenamed Big Ears 3. What 39 of the soldiers do here is to monitor transmissions from their spy satellites orbiting the Earth, as well as tapping into the civilian communication satellites to monitor all their transmissions as well. At workstation number 8, Sergeant Hector Morales has noticed something out of the ordinary on one of his tracking monitors. He calls over his superior, Major Arnold Slay, with his chiseled facial features, crew-cut haircut, and also dressed as the sergeant is in fatigues.
Sir, there's some kind of anomaly I've detected. It's striking one of our satellites at this coordinate, sir.
What kind of anomaly, Sergeant? Do you know its origin?
Sir, it's like some kind of beam I've not come across before. It may be something from space that's striking the Earth, sir.
Major Slay leaves to see his superior. Slay hears the voice from inside the room.
Enter.
Sitting behind a polished maplewood desk in a black leather high-backed chair and also dressed in army fatigues is the imposing-looking Colonel Jefferson. Yes, Major?
Sir, I think we may have found what we're after.
Really?
Sergeant Morales at Workstation 8 has detected an anomaly of unknown origin. A beam of some unidentified energy is coming in at us from space. It seems to be striking the Earth somewhere in southern England. Morales will be keeping an eye on it and try to pinpoint its strike location. It does look promising from what he's shown me so far, sir.
Very good, Arnie. Maybe this time we'll find that meal ticket out of this shithole of an assignment here in bumfuck nowhere. My sentiments exactly, sir, but if this one finally does turn out to be legit, and we can control the glory, which we do have the sole ownership of for right now, then we should be able to get what we want, Colonel. The Colonel and Slay go back 14 years of friendship and share a mutual interest in trying to get out of this posting. They discuss the possibilities of what Sergeant Morales showed Slay, and now wait for his next shift to see if the beam interferes with S-74 again, or any of the other 16 satellites they're assigned to monitor. Slay trusts his instincts. Officers Parker and Carver arrive at Tony's farmhouse and find Billy and Gary's vehicle in front of the house with the headlights still on and the engine idling. They notice looking at the house that Only the downstairs living room and kitchen lights are on, so with their torches shining approach the front porch. Ted calls out as he rings the doorbell.
Gar, Bill, you in there?
The two officers enter and check the ground floors, still calling out for their comrades. With no reply, they go upstairs.
Oh, dear Jesus. There's that god-awful smell again. Oh,
Then discover what happened to them. With a slightly shaky hand, Ted radios to inform Dan of what they've found. Dan is taken back and now filled with worry, realizing how easy this creature can kill, and yet to go undetected until it's too late. Sitting in the rover, Dan tells his team their night's work is far from over. He and his team are eager to have a closer look back at their lab with the only real evidence they have so far, liquid from the wet patches. It's now the only thing to give a clue to help answer the question if it has DNA in it. If so, from where could it have come from to tell them hopefully what they're dealing with. For now, though, they've put it down to some kind of unknown animal, and again Dan calls Dave to update him on the situation and that he wants even more officers out here and a news blackout until he's ready to inform the media of the situation, where it won't be for a few days at least. After speaking to Dan, Dave informs his governor of the escalating situation on the moors. Through the night, they look at many worlds because of the speed at which his telescope operates at. Some are primordial and volcanic, some prehistoric with small and large dinosaur-like creatures, and some at the dawn of evolving intelligent life. But what stands out loud and clear to Tom, telling him what he already knows, is how easy it is to find life within our universe, provided one has the right tools for the job. The two friends take some cold medicine Tom has in the house to keep the sneezing and coughing down, then spend all night and into the wee hours of the morning looking at other worlds, and what is discovered they look upon in humble wonderment with a deep respect of what they see as nature's beloved creations. As the early hours of the morning arrive, John is beginning to nod off from the long night while Tom continues his stargazing. Then, unexpectedly, at 8:56 a.m., the front door chimes on the wall in his workshop observatory is activated. Looking at his surveillance camera monitor, he recognizes it's one of the local constables, Officer Roy Kotz, so goes down to see what he wants. Officer Kotz tells him that a couple of sheep were attacked by some big cat on the moors last night and wanted to know if maybe he saw or heard anything unusual. Tom had to say he hadn't seen or heard a thing, as he was in all night watching TV with a friend that stayed over who Officer Kotz knows as well. He also informs Kotz that his dog would have alerted him to any danger that would have come near the house, which the dog didn't. Satisfied with Tom's answers to his inquiries, he thanks him and leaves for his next address to question the other few people that live out here on the moors. Tom goes back up to his observatory to check over the performance recordings of the telescopic Voyager, but is beginning to feel sleepy from being awake for the last 26 hours, so puts it off till later, needing to cop a few Z's. They don't wake until just after 12 noon to discover worrying matters. By 9:35 a.m., all 42 farmers and other people who live out here on the moors are accounted for, but no one saw or heard anything out of the ordinary.
Up in the sky! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman!
All findings, or lack of them, are reported to Dan and his team, who are examining the physical evidence they believe connected to this case, along with performing autopsies on the people and animals they found mutilated. They need answers, and they need them quickly, as they believe more people may still be in danger. The police on the moors are spread out thin, with an officer every 30 meters apart walking across it in a westerly direction. These officers are trained firearms experts who have been issued with weapons and have been told that there's some kind of very dangerous animal, big cat or whatever, roaming around out here that's more likely responsible for the mayhem. They've also been told not to take any chances other than to shoot first, then ask questions, especially as two well-liked officers are among the dead.
Viewer discretion is advised during this part of the film.
The autopsies. At the Plymouth-based CSI-type facility, Dan and his team have been getting ready to examine the bodies and the evidence they've so far have collected from last night's crime scene. In the shiny white tile and stainless steel autopsy rooms, there's plenty of light so as to properly be able to see what they're doing, unlike television police shows where the lights are barely on for a better cinematic effect. The 7 bodies have been prepared and are now lying on their own necropsy tables with a tray of dissection instruments next to each one. The bodies smell so putrid that it makes it difficult to perform autopsies without wearing a facial breathing mask. Chris is working on Jack's body first, with Mary aiding him. Begin cutting through the skin and bone of the skull as if it were almost butter and going completely around the head. Then taking hold of Jack's skull on both sides just above the ears, he begins pushing his fingers in between where the skull cap was cut and gently but firmly, with a little bit of a twisting this way and that, making a squishy bubbly sound, pulls the top of the skull cap off, exposing where the brain should be. Mary gasps, then remarks with surprise,
"Oh my God, what happened to his brain?" "Holy shit! I think that's what we need to find out. I've never seen anything like this. Dan, you better come over here and have a gander." "Bloody hell, didn't realize you took the brain out so quick. So what's the problem?" "Well, Gov, that's the problem. There's no brain to take out. It's like a small vacuum had sucked it all out. The same here on the back where the spine is melted in." "Holy Christ, this situation's getting worse. What kind of animal does this?" After a few hours of examinations, they admit to each other being stumped as to what could have caused such injuries. Dan tested the wet patches, but they're inconclusive of its origin, even though it does have DNA in it, but was unable to match it up to anything known to exist in the database, even though there are close similarities. "There's an answer here, Gov, and we'll find it, even if not be of this earth. But I find that hard to believe." Dan shakes his head in agreement and continues their investigations until lunchtime. In search of the unknown beam. Taking no chances, Major Slay has left word to be notified if any operators have a problem with S-74 at Workstation 8. Corporal Barry Morgan, on duty, suddenly notices a communication problem emanating from S-74, but has no idea what's causing it, so does as instructed and gives his boss, Major Slay, a call. 10 minutes ago, he was notified of a problem that occurred with S-74, and now the Major is sitting at Workstation 8, having relieved the current operator, Corporal Morgan, until the Major calls him to return, as he wants to handle the situation himself, because the less people there are in the know, then the fewer problems that can arise, which is how Major Slay and Colonel Jefferson like to keep matters. 35 minutes later, he's alerted to the beam's interference once again to S-74, which this time is lasting long enough for him to get a more accurate triangulated fix of where it's striking the Earth. "Come in." Slay enters the colonel's office with a serious look upon his face and, dispensing with protocol, tells his superior, "I found it, sir. I've pinpointed within 5 miles of where the beam's hitting the Earth. I've looked at it closer, and although it appears to be coming towards the Earth, there's something odd about it that makes me think it could be originating from a place in southern England called Dartmoor. There are properties about it I've not encountered before, and it looks very promising for our needs. Either way, that's where to look. In fact, not far from that famous prison they have there, around 4 degrees longitude, 51 degrees latitude." "It's in England, right? How quick can you get there?" "Well, sir, I can be there in just under 6 hours." "Very good, Arnie. I'll call Transguard and let them know I'm authorizing the flights." "How will you know what to look for once you're there if it's an invisible beam?" "I'll be bringing with me a recently developed particle detector that scans for anomalous energy levels, like the ones that were recorded." "All right, Arnie, I'll make the call. You get the Huey out here in an hour, and keep me informed along the way. If you do find the beam, whatever way it's going, get Mask out there and isolate the area. On your determination of the situation, get whatever experts you'll need to interpret what's found. Keep in mind, we don't want any English bobbies sticking their noses in our business."
With that said, they half-heartedly salute each other with smiles from the corner of their mouths. Then Slade leaves to get ready for a secret mission to arrive in England early on Friday morning, GMT time. Tom's nose twitches as he breathes in the aroma of a fresh hot cup of tea that brings him out of an anxious sleep.
I say, old chum, are you ready to get up? Or would the master prefer a lie-in today?
Rubbing his eyes, blowing his nose, and throwing the blanket to one side, Tom sits up and begins putting his pants, shirt, and shoes on, as he never took his shorts and socks off, and asks in a still waking voice,
"Oh, what time is it?" "Why, the master speaks." "Yes, sir, it's just after 1 in the afternoon." "Was or is there some place you need to be today? If so, I could have the coach brought round."
Tom, now awake and smiling from his mate's banter, takes a sip of his tea and tells John he's right where he needs to be for now, and that he wants to go over last night's performance recordings before starting up the telescopic Voyager again. 8 minutes later, there's a tugging in the back of his thoughts. It was the glitch he discovered in going over the performance readouts from last night. It's been niggling in his mind, and he feels he must have a look at what was going on in that room when it happened, as nothing conclusive showed up on the readouts. He knows if something does fault and go wrong in the cold fusion reactor box, a catastrophic explosion could be possible, even though very remote. So to scratch that mental itch, Tom, for the moment, puts what he's doing on hold to see if maybe there was something that got missed from last night, and tells John he needs to look at something first and if he wouldn't mind getting another pot of tea. As he sits in front of his computers and monitors going over the information he's gathered, Tom contemplates on what he did and saw with his telescope, knowing that he barely touched the tip of the iceberg of discoveries he's yet to make. As he's reviewing the information recorded from last night, Tom discovers something quite unexpected. 11:20 p.m., and back at SACO headquarters, Dan Hawk is awoken and informed of another 4 people that have been attacked and killed up on Dartmoor at near Tony's farm, with 2 of them being members of the public and 2 more police officers. Dan is heartbroken and angry, discovering that his most promising assistant was horribly attacked and mutilated, along with another constable, farmer, and a nosy reporter whose video camera the police found on the ground next to him, but had nothing to show when they played it back. So now one of Dan's biggest concerns is how to inform the press and public that too many police officers and civilians were so easily and unexplainably killed in such a grisly way in just a short space of time. He's beginning to dislike himself for having to be forced to believe in something that he knows shouldn't exist, but something does. What really happened? John brings up another tray with tea and biscuits, as finally Tom can no longer ignore what's niggling in his thoughts, and says to his friend, "When I was going over the performance recordings from last night, I noticed there was a 3-second glitch between 11:15 and 11:50. It didn't seem to affect anything as far as I can tell from the information the scans recorded, but I couldn't find precisely what caused it. So now I want to have a look at the video recordings of this room to see if maybe that would tell me something. It seems to have occurred when I went downstairs to let you in last night." On his keyboard, Tom types in the time frame he wants to inspect, then pushes the play button. Bing, bong, bong. The playback starts at 11:15 p.m. They now watch when Tom calls John to invite him over, and being speeded up looks somewhat comical, especially since they can hear Tom talking as if he had inhaled helium. They both begin to laugh, but as Tom replies, he sees from the corner of his eye something flash on and off the screen because it's running at 3 times the speed. Whoa, what was that? What was what? He winds the recording back for 2 minutes, then they watch at normal speed. Suddenly they see something totally unexpected happen. "What the fuck is that?" says John, as the laughter evaporates and a look of horror fills their faces. Tom remarks and plays it again. "I don't believe it. That shouldn't have happened. Even though there was a 100th of 1% of 1% unknown factor in my equation, I never would have expected something like that to have occurred." Oh, my word, Thomas. You don't think that's what... I don't want to think it. Tom shaking his head. He plays it back again, and this time they watch in slow motion. Within 2 seconds of entering into the world, he quickly looks around and spots the open dome where it's dark. It leaps 9 feet almost straight up and out through the opening and is gone into the black night. Tom plays it back more than a few times as they watch, wondering how they'll get this Pandora back in its box. Nothing is funny anymore now. Oh dear, how the hell are you going to get this thing back?
Life form from another part of the universe has leapt away to safety in the darkness that moors in a gray, cloud-covered, moonless night like this can survive, and is alone with the darkness being the only shelter. It feels secure within, as it's extremely vulnerable to life, but like all living things everywhere that have a greater or lesser sense of being, it does have a meaning. And if we could speak its language, then we would know it as a bone. As it's a creature of stealth, fast kills, and then hurriedly devours its prey before others try to partake in what isn't theirs. This alien comes from a planet 1.5 times the size of Earth, with a heavier gravitational pull, but isn't and is neither male nor female, but a hermaphrodite, one that instinctively becomes self-impregnated when reaching maturity. The gome also grows as quickly as it eats, only excreting a small amount of liquid substance after each meal, as it retains 95% of everything it consumes. On that first night of the gome's relocation into this world, I found that humans make for the best food for the next generation. The gome, in its short stay here on Earth, has selected an appropriate safe location in which to lay its birth pods, and is now on its way to that place, a place where no one would think of looking.
I don't like having to say this, but it's more than likely that's what's got the police busy up here.
Do you think it came across Tone's house as it moved over the moors? Maybe it found some other people as well. Oh, dear me.
In his mind, he quickly pulls himself together if he's to make amends of what he's unwittingly brought into this world. He looks at the recordings again, but this time focusing in on the monitor and what he was looking at when this dreadful error occurred. Both men watching with great interest see that the lens is only 1 inch from some bramble-like tree, but then from inside the plant something dark greenish is seen coming towards the wormhole lens, and whatever type of creature it is just kept coming right into the lens without stopping. Tom's jaw drops as he now understands better what may have happened, but he needs to first go back over the performance recordings to see what he missed, as he now knows he did overlook something.
Oh, any idea, Thomas, what you're going to do about this? I say, maybe we should go hunt this thing down. No, that may not be a good idea. Tell the police. They'll know what to do with it.
Oh, no, we can't tell the police. We can't tell anybody. Think about it. What do we tell them when they ask where it came from, and how do we know about it?
Oh, shit. I'm sorry, old chum, I forgot. All right, plan B.
Tom smiles a little, knowing his friend would never divulge what he has shown him, and that it has to remain a secret for the time being. That is, until Tom is ready to reveal his invention to the world. But now Tom has real problems that are rearing their heads up from a couple of fronts. How to get what got loose back, and how to ensure his invention stays a secret. But the hardest part is going to be how to deal with the guilt that is slowly setting in and hardening like cement in his thoughts. Friday. A major sleigh has arrived at RAF Mildenhall, about 70 miles north of London. The F-104 starfighter jet he's flown in to get here lands on runway 25. The major is met by a saluting Corporal Higgs, who with his jeep is assigned to take him to a smaller hangar at the other end of the base, where a small, painted black Hughes 500 helicopter and its pilot have been waiting for him. On board will only be Major Slay and the pilot, Warrant Officer Kyle Wainwright, also dressed in civilian clothes. It's only now, as they rise upwards, that Slay instructs Kyle where he wants to be flown to up on Dartmoor.
Oh shit, Kyle! Is this the way to Dartmoor? You can fly a bit higher if you like, Kyle.
How much further to Dartmoor? Without verbal reply, Kyle points straight ahead, then holds up 5, then 3 fingers with his right hand to indicate 8 miles to go. Slay shakes his head in understanding and turns on his detector. The Major's luck is in, and within 10 seconds of what he was hoping to find is now right there in front of him where it's roughly located. He points slightly to the right, showing the pilot where he wants to go. Kyle does as instructed and heads unknowingly in the direction of Tom's house. Tom once again goes back over his performance recordings in an effort to understand and figure out what went wrong. This takes him some time, and to go into the technical jargon of what exactly he does is highly classified. But he finally sees where the malfunction had occurred, makes the few corrections needed within the nanoprocessor guidance aligner, and is now quite confident there'll be no more hiccups and the telescope is once again ready to use. This time, Tom has fixed it so that it can look without being seen or interact with anything when it gets too close to something, which is why the creature was sucked into this world. A tachyon impulse anomaly was created when the creature touched where the lens was and caused a sort of electrical short that momentarily reversed the polarity and pulling the thing back through the wormhole lens before Tom's watchdog program could correct the malfunction. Slowly shaking his head, a tear rolls down his left cheek as he tries to find the strength he's going to need, and needs quickly, or all will be lost.
Someplace dark and undisturbed but guarded over, a process begins that's been going on for over 100 million years. On the dirt floor in one corner, a 1-meter diameter circle has been indented into the ground, and above it, in the center, hovers the central bottom part of the greenish-brown, dripping, undulating round birth orifice of the dome, making a sound as if someone was opening and closing a mouthful of saliva. One end of a maroon-colored pod begins to be excreted outward into the center of the circle. Because of the thick birthing fluid, the pod sticks standing up on one end. It's followed by another that is placed standing next to it, as is another in an ever-increasing circle spiraling around from the first one in a process that will take many hours.
It's midday Friday, and John Thornton, the landlord of the Plume of Feathers, has gathered the locals that live on the moors to a meeting at his pub to discuss what's been happening on the moors and to notify people that the police, headed by Dan Hawk, will make a statement at 3 p.m. today to officially inform the public of the events that have been going on over the last few days out on the moors. Major Slay has also arrived at midday, landing at the local helipad about 200 meters away. Slay, seeing the crowd of people at the Feathers, decides to stick around for a few days to understand better what's been going on in this small community. He thinks maybe the beam of energy he's looking for could be linked to the tragedies he's read about online. So he takes a room at the Feathers under the name of Dennis Abbey, and he's a location film scout seeking places to film a major motion picture here in the Princetown area. John Thornton believed his cover story as he knew Slay arrived by helicopter, so assumes that's how Hollywood moves its workers about, as well as paying up front in cash.
It's a slow process taking up to 4 or 5 hours because of the pain it causes in the laying of the egg pods and how they must be laid out. But it must be done this way to ensure the new generation is able to bind together and allowing for greater strength, as the developing dome are able to link together telepathically, which helps to ensure their survival as a whole when their pods hatch. as they will only be 4 inches in length and vulnerable if not protected in some way until they need no protection at all.
"1:15 p.m., and the police have finished for now their investigation of Kressler's farmhouse. Along with the rest of the surrounding area where the bodies were found. The officers are beginning to pack away all the equipment that was used to help in their investigations of the area, but some officers are still searching the land down the road, where 7 of them are fanned out over a section of the moors about a mile east of Tony's farm. The officers also feel quite safe being out here in the daylight of the afternoon, so are not really on their guard, believing the killer only attacks at night from what they've ascertained so far of its movements.
The drone has just finished the laying of the final birth pod. Fortunately, pods will have protection and be guarded over until they hatch by what will become their first feeding. When any animal finding the nest and out of curiosity licks the fluid-coated pods, will quickly be affected as it's poisonous to all but the gome and begin to die, waiting to become food for when the baby gomes hatch out of their castings, as they will eat the dead to survive at first.
Fueled by an adrenaline high of excited curiosity, the need to know, and having put aside his self-pity, Tom finally is able to discover where the problem lies. Tom repeats the process he had used to discover the problem again and again, making sure he has not missed out or overlooked anything. In solving this problem, many other doors in his mind have been opened to dreams he had put aside years ago that began in his childhood. What if, he thinks. Why not, he wonders. I think I will, he decides. He resurrects an old idea he had as part of an undersea exploration vehicle experiment. And now that he has the power it needed and a better use for it, he feels he can make an ultimate dream finally come true. It only takes him a little over an hour to fully construct it once again, as it was already 90% put together. When finished, he put it back to one side for when the other parts of his plan are in place. But for now, he'll say nothing to no one but his own mind until the time is right, and the other pieces he'll need to his puzzle are all ready to go. What remains is just putting it all together.
With the creature's ordeal now over, it's time for the gome to leave, knowing that it must quickly get away from its spawn to ensure their safekeeping, so as to allow its offspring to have a good start without other predators looking for them. With a part of motherly instinct, the gome turns for one last look at its hope for the survival of its species in this new world, then turns back around and leaps away into the daylight for the first and last time in its life.
Its quick spring action allows it to leap across the moors, heading in a direction that takes it around the back of where Tony's farm is. The creature can see the 7 police officers spread out 100 meters ahead searching the moors. Officer Ryan Cotswold, who's the furthest along the lineup up the hillside, hears a noise up ahead.
Blimey, what the fuck is that?
But it's too late, as the speed of the gome is just too quick, and grabs Officer Cotswold and begins to quickly feed. The next constable along the line is Dylan Hicks, who looks up hearing his partner's cries and sees him being attacked. Horrified at the sight of what's happening, Officer Hicks immediately begins running towards his friend in an effort to save him, takes aim and fires 3 rounds into what he thinks is the monster's head. The pieces of lead have an almost instant effect with the gome, making no noise from being shot dead. Almost immediately, with no spark of life left in it, The creature begins to decompose from prolonged exposure to the sunlight that's now causing further chemical changes to it. Hicks gets on his shoulder radio and contacts the command post, telling them that they have captured and killed whatever kind of animal it was that is responsible for the deaths on the moors in the last few days. But unfortunately, it was able to add Officer Cotswold to the list before being shot and killed. It's 4:35 p.m., and Tim Barber, the meter reader for Western Power, is making his final stop of the day to read the electric meter on the outside back part of Ton Lansdowne's house. Tim comes around every 3 months to read the meter, and Purdy is quite used to seeing him for the last 4 years. But today, for some reason, as he's taking the reading, the dog is just standing still in front of the entry to under the house, looking at him, with its front teeth showing and emitting a low guttural growl. This somewhat unnerves Tim, as the dog has always been very friendly on previous occasions. So as he would usually do, outstretches his arm in a bid to pet Purdy on the head. But the dog quickly barks and snaps back at him, forcing Tim to pull his hand away just in the nick of time. The dog returns to his defensive stance until the meter reader man has finished his job, which Tim quickly does, then looks at the dog and says, "Fuck you, you stupid mutt," and hurriedly then leaves. The dog lays back down in front of the open entry point, and all is back to normal and safe once again. It's 7:25 p.m. Friday evening here at the oldest building in Princetown, the Plume of Feathers Inn and Pub, located in the heart of Dartmoor, and with the heavy specter of so many premature deaths in the small community, it has overshadowed the usual friendly cajolity the pub is more used to. But now the people have been assured that whatever it is finally gone.
In a safe as yet undiscovered place, being guarded over, 193 4-inch long gome birth pods are incubating themselves by the way they were laid out in an ever-increasing tightly packed circle by their hermaphrodite parent. In this way, each one will be in physical contact with at least 2, 3, or 4 others, thus ensures that all are able to telepathically bond together as a whole unit. For this has been the way of this unique species for the last 100 million years on their home planet, and in this way they are all able to feel and understand one another's presence from before their hatching. The gome will burst out of their castings, being hungry creatures, and go looking for their first feeds together. With all the animal and human food there is about here on Dartmoor, it won't take them long to grow. But newly hatched gomes will consume every drop of edible organic matter, leaving only a bleached white skeleton. For now, though, these creatures sleep as they grow and subconsciously bond together in their birthing pods, which feed them until the time of their hatching, that is, if they're not discovered and destroyed before they have a chance to put an end to what would want to put an end to them.
The ongoing investigation. 7:30 a.m. at the Police Forensic Laboratory and Morgue. Dan Hawk and his Sacco team get an early start to this Saturday morning in hopes of finding out what kind of creature it is that one of their officers killed yesterday. And what there is something that amounts to a small pile of a jelly-like dark green goo. It has no real discernible shape as to what it originally looked like, and gives off a smell that's overpowering and god-awful. And once it's sniffed, it lingers long in the nostrils as the molecules of the odor latch onto the hair follicles inside the nose. From there, they move up the hair, and then under the skin, and then... A few hours later of doing dissections and chemical testing, Dan is no nearer to understanding what it was that killed these people, other than knowing how they met their demise, as what he's testing is making no sense, which is because some of the chemicals in the DNA structure are not found on this planet. So there are no guidelines to understand with. But Dan is a man who doesn't settle for an inconclusive answer, as he firmly believes that there is a reason behind every action, so won't give up until he knows the truth of what's going on here and figures out how to find that answer. But by lunchtime they still don't understand anything more than what they already know about this case, which is very little other than many people are dead from something no one has ever seen before.
8:17 Saturday morning, and Tom continues his quest in finding out and understanding what went wrong with his telescopic Voyager that allowed such a creature into our world. John has again spent the night here at Tom's house, as his good lady Ryoko isn't back from Turkey yet, and John tells Tom that he has some things to do back at his house, so will be off to his home, and assures Tom their secret is safe with him, and sneezes. Leaving, Tom also sneezes and blows his runny nose. He wonders where Pertz has gotten off to, as he hasn't seen him lately, nor has he touched his bowl of kibble, but dismisses it, knowing Pertz likes to chase rabbits at this time of the year, and goes back to updating his device and making his childhood dreams into an even more amazing invention that will go out of this world. Tom is full of regret and remorse for what has happened, but maybe he can find a way of turning things around.
Slay returns to his B&B at the pub and informs Kyle that he'll be staying on for a few more days longer under the name of Dennis Abbey at the Plume of Feathers pub, not far from where the helipad is located, and to come pick him up at around 2 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. He feels by then he'll have the information he's after and be ready to be airlifted off the moors, and finally able to head back to his command in Alaska. It's just after 9 a.m. Sunday morning, and Tom, now beginning to sneeze a bit more, has come to understand the problem with great clarity. Tom is pleased that he's repaired the problem fairly quickly and discovered something of great interest and added value that was quite unexpected, and is also able to adapt it to the telescope. But he doesn't turn on the telescopic Voyager just yet, even though he knows it will work first time every time, as there is still some other business he needs to do first. It's 9:28 a.m. Sunday morning, and John has arrived to take Tom with him to the memorial service at the local parish church for the victims of the creature now that the police have released their names. Tom and John arrive at the local Princetown Parish for a memorial service for the victims of the creature, even though none of the bodies have been yet released to the families. They join the crowd of mourners and listen to the eulogies. Tom feels responsible, but has to harden himself if he's to find a way of fixing the problem. But something very unexpected happens while the two friends are standing there. A lovely girl with her hair tied back in a ponytail the way Tom has his, standing next to him, takes his attention, as when she looked at him and he back at her, their eyes locked onto each other in a staring gaze for about 10 seconds. They both felt something that could only be explained as love at first sight. Each had a little smile, then turned away, realizing this may not be the best place to start up a romance. So Tom says to John, "Say, John, how about we meet up at the Plume of Feathers tonight for a remembrance drink? Say around 8? John is a bit taken back by Tom's sudden unexpected question, but knowing his friend doesn't say something for no reason at all, well, I say, my good man, that's kind of you to ask. 8 sounds good to me." Just a little over an hour later, the service comes to a painful close, as there are yet no bodies to bury, so there are more unpleasant services to come when the deceased are released to their loved ones. Finally, it's time for everyone to disperse, and Tom and Carrie give each other one last glance, as they both have a feeling they'll be seeing each other again soon. It's 12:35 p.m. Sunday afternoon at the Police Forensic Laboratory and Morgue. Wearing their white plastic overalls with face masks, both Dan and Chris are once again going over the wounds inflicted by the strange creature on one of the victims lying on the table in front of them, and examining how exactly the animal killed its prey. But suddenly Chris begins to feel an intense itch that he needs to scratch on the back of his right hand, so stops what he's doing, removes the latex glove, and begins to scratch it. Something is now horribly wrong with him, and his hand feels like it's in a fire and ice at the same time, along with a mild headache that's in its beginning stages on each side of his head. He wishes not to alert Dan to his problem, so as calm as possible tells him, "Oh no, excuse me, Gov, but something I had for breakfast wants out. Be right back. Sorry about this," and hurries down the hallway to the men's room. Quickly he immerses the back of his itchy hand under the warm water tap, thinking that may help as he turns it on, but washing it with soap from the dispenser for a few minutes has no effect on the slowly growing irritating sore. Chris is scared, and he's not quite sure why, but is beginning to feel so unwell, shivery, and worried about the growing spot on his hand. Looking at it, he sees it's beginning to turn a dark green, and his nostrils can only smell that vile odor that the creature and its victim stank of. He can feel something creeping around in his body at speed. It feels like some kind of parasitic worm wiggling its way through his veins, but not just one. Ooh! He collapses and now lays on the tiled bathroom floor. This is because it's being caused by quickly growing black worm-like creatures growing up to 3 inches in length at first inside of him, and having hundreds of little sharp spikes protruding from all around their bodies that they use to move along with. As they inch along, a deadly toxin is secreted out of the ends of each spike onto whatever organic matter they're crawling over. The toxin dissolves organic matter so that the worms can feast upon a yellowish pus-like substance it's turned into. Like maggots, they will feed until there's nothing left to eat, growing up to a meter in size. Say, Bill, do me a favor and see if Chris is all right. He went to the loo a little over 10 minutes ago. Bill acknowledges Dan and goes to see about Chris. Hey, Chris, getting worried. What the fuck? He's horrified looking at the half-melted body of Chris and seeing thousands of repulsive-looking black parasites swimming about and feeding on dissolved pieces of Chris's body. He quickly runs over to the sink and brings back up from his stomach what was his breakfast and lunch, as it comes shooting out of his mouth looking like vegetable soup, and bringing with it that foul smell of vomit which quickly permeates and mixes in the air with the wretched smell of Chris's body. Dan puts down what he's doing and rushes out to see what's happened to Bill, who he finds sitting on one of the 4 chairs in the hallway and bent over with his head down between his legs almost, coughing and trying to get his breathing back to normal. Bill explains what he saw, then Dan goes to have a look. He can't believe what he sees of Chris's body being covered in the spiky worm-like creatures. The penny drops, and he realizes he has a contagion on his hands, and that him and all his workmates have been exposed to it. He gets on his cell phone and informs his superior, then gets everyone out of the autopsy room and into their office, telling everyone to wait there. He then, with some alcohol, returns to Chris's body and sets it alight, then returns to the office. Slay gets lucky. It's 7:15 p.m. He's been killing most of the afternoon and early evening by waiting to see if his beam detector springs into action, along with amusing himself with some porn he's been watching on his cell phone again that has internet access, and thinks to himself, "This sure don't make me laugh much. Doing something that makes people feel good." Suddenly his beam detector comes to life, so he stops what he's doing and goes over to the windowsill to see what it's detecting and where. A smile begins to fill his face as he sees it's detected exactly what Slay is after, and it's pointing in the direction of Tom's house. This time the beam is staying on long enough for Slay to get a good, solid, proper fix on it, so we'll find a back entranceway to Tom's place over the moors. Tom arrives. The Feathers is about 3/4 full, still being more subdued than the usual noise and cajolery the pub should sound like, as the main topic of discussion is again the recent events. Some of the regulars have noticed that someone is missing. It's Everhard, who's usually propped up on the end stool every Sunday evening and trying to talk drinks out of the people with his tales of the moors. About 5 minutes after 8, Carrie, the girl with the ponytail he almost met at the memorial service, enters the pub and sees Tom sitting across from John, with Ryoko sitting next to him. Their eyes lock onto each other again, and the same thing happens once more within each of them. She's not shy, being a reporter, so approaches their table and tells Tom she remembers seeing him at the service with a sweet smile, smiling as well, and tells her he remembers seeing her also, and invites this lovely lady to join them. They spend the next 3 hours getting to know one another, and discovering Tom and Carrie share a great many passions and interests, almost as though they had known the other for many years. John and Ryoko also share many of their interests, and the four of them find themselves bonding together seamlessly. They all also are sharing their colds with one another, as occasional sneezes and coughs are heard from each of them over the evening. If there is one thing that Tom has to his advantage, is good instincts, as does Carrie, being a successful reporter. Towards the end of the evening, Tom's head is in a spin, as is Carrie's, as neither expected to fall in love so quickly. They both feel like they've known each other in past lives and have never felt so positive and overwhelmed by someone to the extent of what they find themselves emotionally feeling in such a short period of time for each other. But it's what they both have longed for, a love of respect, honesty, and compatibility. Tom wants so badly to share his secret, which John already knows about, and decides to take a leap of faith and love, and invites Carrie and Ryoko with John back to his place for a cup of tea. Carrie, John, and Ryoko don't waste the offer, and they follow Tom back to his home. It's time.
It's quiet. No sound disturbs the air here, or any light invading into the dark through cracks. The only smells one would notice is that of the earth of the moors, which is the base foundation under Tom's house, and some of the dead animals starting to decay. In the darkest corner lay 193 4-inch long gome birth pods. Suddenly, there's a sound like that of rubbing wet, sticky leather together slowly. Then the sound multiplies as more of the gome pods begin to move about in readiness to break through their casings and hatch, for it is now their time to exist. Within a minute, all the pods are moving about, to and fro, side to side, as their occupants work their way out to crack open what encases them. It's creepy sounding as the gome free themselves while chattering to each other in a cacophony of noise. The many creatures are climbing over each other in an instinctive frenzy to devour the food that is already laying all over the dirt floor around where the pods are. They stick their sharp feeding tentacles into the dead animals and quickly begin sucking all the flesh, tissue, and fluids into themselves. But their appetites are never satisfied. Pretty is laying by the opening watching what the gome are doing, but is unable to move, being under the influence of these telepathic creatures. Then, without warning, over 100 of these alien animals attack and begin feeding upon the dog. It whines in terror and pain, unable to escape its unfortunate fate. It takes only minutes before the dog is just meat, looking white bones, now just laying there.
Earlier that evening, when Tom was leaving for the pub, Major Slay looks at his watch, 6:50 p.m., and he is ready to find out what is going on at Tom's house, and is glad this will be the last night he has to stay in this godforsaken place that he's had to, as he puts it, eat shit and smile. He takes what he needs for the operation and quietly leaves the pub without being seen, then walks south along the B3212 for about a mile, then turns right. That takes him to a car park area that overlooks the moors. With his binoculars, he can see that Tom's house is around another 1.5 miles from where he's at. He now moves out. It's dusk, but there is still plenty of light to see by. His sleigh is finally within 300 meters of Tom's house. But just as he's about to move closer to his target, he catches sight of Tom leaving the house, so quickly ducks down. He watches as Tom drives off up the lane to the main road. He approaches the front of the house when a strange noise from around the corner of the house gets his attention.
What the hell is that? Is that a baby crying?
Being cautious, he peeks around the corner to see where the noise is coming from, and then looking ahead he can see that crawl space entry point, one in which to gain access for getting under the house. It's from there that the now becoming awful sound is originating from. Maybe it's the machine he's looking for that's operating, he wonders. Gazing into the dark orifice, he sees nothing at first.
What the fuck are those?
Before the Major knew what was happening, they had attacked him and began sticking their sharp healing tentacles through his clothing and in the sleigh by up to 4 inches. Not a drop was wasted, and 15 minutes later, the alien animals are now 12 inches tall and have organized themselves to leave this place as soon as it's fully dark enough outside.
A little later on, Tom's mini convoy pulls up to his house quietly, and everybody parks their vehicle where they stop. Showing his friends in, Tom wonders why Bertie isn't about to greet his companions, as he would usually do when anyone visits, but dismisses it now and invites his friends inside for a night they'll never forget, despite the sneezing, coughing, and blowing their noses from a cold they're all now sharing thanks to John. Closing the door behind them, they all follow Tom in, and he gives a quick tour of the downstairs to Carrie, then makes a pot of tea for everyone. John and Ryoko have been here many times, and Carrie is well impressed at how clean and tidy Tom's place is for a single person living in such a big old house that's a mix of yesterday and today, as he shows her around. They both feel such a strong attraction for each other, and trying to understand why they both want to do more with each other than just having sex as they walk around his home. John and Ryoko have seen to the tea and biscuits, seeing Tom is a bit distracted right now from what he started. Finally, with their occasional coughs and sneezes, they all sit down where Tom passes around the cold medicine and then the teas. One of the many things that both Tom and Carrie are finding they agree upon is that everyone has a soulmate in this life, and that they both for some reason feel they have known each other in a previous life or two, as much in the same way John and Ryoko describe how they feel about their relationship for the last 7 years, and had the same kind of awareness with each other on the day they met. Love is a many-splendid thing when its true meaning is understood, and these 4 personalities are bonding closer together as they discuss their unified beliefs of what they want with someone else from this lifetime. Finally, a few hours later, Tom decides to take a leap of faith and love, but first tells Carrie and Ryoko, as John already knows, what he's about to show them they must never tell anyone, as their lives will be in great danger. But their knowledge will be increased in ways beyond what anyone really knows on this planet. John nods his head with a small, serious smile of reassurance. Ryoko goes wherever John goes, and Carrie realizes her future is about to change for the better, and being a reporter, her curiosity will not be denied, and tells Tom whatever his secret is, it will be safe with her. With the occasional sneezing and nose blowing, Tom leads them up to his observatory for a night they'll never forget.
Back at the forensic laboratory, after Dan had informed his superior of what drastic actions to take, he has locked his team in the main office and declared it a quarantined area, and no one is to leave, as Dan explains he believes they've all been infected by breathing in the smell that the bodies emitted and had no idea what could stop what has been smelled by hundreds of people so far, as none of their test results could identify what they were dealing with. And that's because they have no idea it came from another planet. What Dan didn't realize until too late is that the extraction fans in the autopsy room were overwhelmed with the stench, and some of it escaped into the outside air and was wafted throughout the local neighborhood and breathed in by many of the people that lived there. The local hospital was beginning to get overwhelmed with people coming in feeling very unwell, and then have the spiky poisonous worms come crawling out of their bodies with the gut-wrenching smell. Sadly, too much damage has been done before this horrible contagion can be contained. Once smelled, it takes 2 or 3 days before its effects take hold of those who unknowingly inhale the vile odor. Unfortunately, there were a number of people who were infected and left the area before anyone knew what was really happening. Dan can now feel within his body the worms taking hold as they're sobbing and moaning amongst his team as they all realize there is no way out of this terrible situation, and sees the spiky worms wiggling their way out of Dan's forearms and neck. He cries out in a sudden burst of pain and falls to the floor. Dan also informed his superiors to have all healthy police people wear gas masks, and if any one of his team tries to escape the office, then they must be shot on sight, and wishes those unaffected Godspeed in trying to find an antidote. A few days later, at a baseball game in Arizona. Take me out to the ball game. The score stood 2-4 with but an inning left to play for the Arizona Diamondbacks this day, here at Chase Field in Tucson, Arizona, the home of the D-backs indoor baseball stadium with retractable roof, and where in the blue section, 117, row 5, seat J, is sitting Alfie Stevens, who's very much enjoying the game. His wife, Gretchen, of 18 years, is sitting next to him, rooting on the hometown team to win. Johnson takes a swing and foul tips it to the seats behind him. The ball has been hit almost 150 feet up into the air and is now coming back down towards where Alfie is sitting. In all the ball games he's been to, Alfie's never caught a foul ball until now, as this one is coming straight in his direction. He's on his feet with his arms outstretched, ready to grab it before the guy next to him can, because if you want it, you have to fight for it, and he's ready to grab at this rare opportunity. The baseball is quickly getting closer, and Alfie can almost feel the leather stitch-covered ball in his hands. But suddenly, instead, there is a burning feeling on the back of his left hand that causes Alfie to glance at it, taking his eye off the ball and allowing it to land in the palm of the guy next to him. Alfie sits straight down holding his burning hand with a pain that's quickly enveloping the rest of his arm, and now he's beginning to moan and groan from the intense growing pain. Gretchen, noticing Alfie's suffering, asks what's wrong, looking very worried. And Alfie falls unconscious and dies with black pustule sores quickly developing on his body, and the horrible spiky black worms crawling out of them. His wife is frantically trying to revive him by holding and rubbing his left hand, but breaking open other new developed sores, allowing more worms to be exposed. She tries to pull them off her husband, but because of how sharp and stiff they are, they stick into her fingers, causing immediate excruciating pain, of which she lets out an awful yell. No one really takes any notice, as they think she's rooting for the home run hitter. P.U., who took a horrible shit? Being an enclosed stadium, the gentle breeze created by the air conditioning spreads the smell quickly. The boy's father looks down at him and says sternly, "You know your mother doesn't like you to talk like that, and you know that's not a very nice word to say, Junior." Oh, that was a wicked shit. Tom spends the night showing his friends what amazing things there are to be seen beyond our planet's atmosphere, and Carrie with Ryoko are blown away with the incredible real-time images they see on the large TV monitor, and are humbled in his presence. But more than that, Carrie used to think she would never meet the true man of her dreams who could show her what she believes as well. And if ever Cupid's arrow had hit its mark more precisely, then her heart, mind, and soul was his. Tom was also smitten beyond anything he believed could ever happen with Carrie, and they both knew it and did nothing to stop it, but let their feelings flow and envelop the other while being amazed at what the universe really looks like. It's a place created by love, Tom tells Carrie. They can hardly wait for their first kiss, but they're not rushing, as all of a sudden they both have all the time in the universe. His friends are so taken with what they're privy to that they ask if they can spend a few days at his home, and that John and Ryoko would go to the shops later for some extra food. Tom has plenty of room in his house, and John and Ryoko have enjoyed staying many nights here in the past. Carrie in the morning calls in to work, telling them that she's not very well with a cold, as all four of the friends have colds for the last few days, and that she should be back to work in a day or two. But after having ended the call, she whispers to herself, "If ever," and smiles. Later that morning, John and Ryoko first stop at their home, gathering up some clothes and personal items they would like to have with them, and then drive to the Sainsbury's supermarket in Tavistock. Struggling with their colds, John and Ryoko have just finished doing quite a big shop, spending over £400. But as they're leaving the checkout counter, having paid, they see a lady in her 40s fall down a few feet from them and die from the virus with black spiky worms crawling out from pus-filled sores. But something happens that makes John think as he hears people complaining about the smell being the worst thing they ever encountered with their noses, and some people are puking their guts out over display stacks of packaged food items, while John and Ryoko are smelling something totally different. It's slightly sweet and almost undetectable if they didn't know there was an awful smell about, indicated by everyone's reactions around them. Now fully realizing what's happening here, they quickly leave, having seen enough, and drive back to Tom's house, wanting to let him know what may be an answer. Tom and Carrie wake up together about 40 minutes after John and Ryoko had left. Tom sees the note they left him, pushed under the door, so gets it, reads it, then jumps back into the sack to join Carrie for a bit more physical enjoyment with each other, as they both feel that they've never experienced such wonderful and sensual lovemaking as they do with each other. And 30 minutes later, they feel refreshed, and Tom is now ready to help move Carrie in. A phone call. Hello, news desk. Abe Wiseman speaking. How can I help you? The caller's voice has been machine-altered so as to not be recognized.
I can't talk long, so please listen. The deadly virus is loose in the Nuffield Hospital and is spread by the odor given off the body of someone who died of it. It kills people and animals that smell it in and around 3 days, and there is no cure. Get your people away from the hospital and also on Duke Road, where the phony chemical incident is. It's the smell that did it.
Abe tries not to laugh, but can't help it. The smell, you say? Don't smell it then. Who are you if you want me to take this seriously?
The creature that was recently killed on the moors that killed 13 people there, is from that creature the virus originated. Please, don't dismiss what I say, and may God help us all.
The caller then hung up, feeling nothing was achieved by hearing Abe laugh. So, what do we do? John knows what to do, looking at the clock on the wall, and asks Tom to turn on the TV so they can watch the local 6 o'clock newscast. He wants to see if there are any more developments on the stories he spoke about earlier. They all feel that would be a good idea, so on goes the TV, and there is some updated material that takes their interest. It's of the reporter commenting on some of the strange calls they've received in connection with those stories. And here are a few of the off-the-wall suggestions as to what's going on from people that called in to the news desk. One caller claims to have seen aliens running around on the moors looking for a better parking place than the one they were given. Another caller claimed there is a virus being spread by the dead bodies killed by a creature that was killed up on Dartmoor, and according to that caller, if you smell it, you're dead in 3 days, it seems. Well, it seems Dartmoor has been a busy place as of late. He went on to read a few more, but it was that phone caller's concern that got their attention the most. In fact, some of the missing pieces of the puzzle are now falling into place with what they already know. Upon hearing the news, Tom tells his friends he needs to finish something upstairs. Because of the unlimited power he has from the 2 cold fusion reactors and knowing how to widen the beam's transporting effects, he puts into practice something he worked out that allows the quantum state to merge with the reality we know in a controllable manner, which has allowed his machine to do what it can and become a universal transportation device. Then with its tachyon beam in a half-and-half state that scans everything to be transported that's within 100 meters around the telescope that was also programmed into the computers, the tachyons are able to merge our reality into a quantum state that safely transports what was also programmed in because of the almost unlimited power the cold fusion reactor can deliver. It basically breaks down every atom and its constituent particles, then reassembles them without one particle out of place. Such is the precision of Tom's knowledge in knowing how to create these machines that no others know how to do just yet in this field of physics. Because he has so much power at his disposal, he has reconstructed his computers to be the most powerful ever made, and able to give him the answers of how to create a program that can be used as a universal translator, which he'll need when encountering other civilizations he would like to talk with. His computing power also allows him to create a tachyon cloaking device, one that renders the whole house invisible and feels will be well needed for what he also is formulating in his mind. After 4 hours, he steps back and feels all is now ready to do something amazing, and he knows it will work. His mind is racing, trying to find answers to justify a worsening accident of his making, but survival can bring out the dark side that dwells in all of us, and that drive is so strong within Tom that he accepts he made a mistake that will cost the lives of billions possibly, but maybe that mistake was meant to happen. Maybe the people will never have the courage as a whole to do the right thing for their children's children, he thinks. For what he dislikes the most is seeing so many greedy conflicts with so much human suffering constantly going on day after day and no end in sight. He wonders whom he is that he should tell people what to do, when all they would want to do is steal what he has. The friends have now moved back up to the observatory, where Tom has been explaining and showing them what new modifications he's done to the T-Voyager, and is once again ready to switch it on. Terry asks Tom to turn on the TV and see if there is any further information concerning the sickness going around, but instead are surprised by what news reports have been compiled from around a couple of the areas in the last few days, mostly from mobile phone footage with pictures of the fires that are now destroying the hospital, police lab, and city morgue, showing the Army being involved in starting them. They also broadcast the latest statement from an Army spokesperson given an hour ago, explaining why the fires were set, and that they want to evacuate all the people that live in those areas for health reasons. They've asked for everybody to cooperate and to please stay indoors and get off the streets, and that more information will be released as soon as they get it. Suddenly, from the dome opening, they hear the gut-wrenching screams of 2 people out on the moors, over half a mile away, as the sound travels with no others to dilute it, so they quickly go over to have a look out onto the dark moors, but the yells for help soon stop. They look out to where the light stops and try to peer into the darkness to see who is in trouble, but see and hear nothing. They listen intently, but still nothing to hear. Not a sound is heard for a few minutes. Then, a sound cuts through the air they've never heard before. In a raised, unsettled voice, Carrie shouts out,
Oh my God, look at that!
and all are aghast at what they can see just at the edge of the lights. It's the Gome, and they're moving back and forth, testing it, but not coming any closer than that, as John remarks.
Ah, holy shit! I say those grimy little bastards want to get us! I do so hope your light bulbs were recently changed, Wicked Man. Really? And did you pay your electric bill, I hope, as well?
Tom answers, Good question, John. Very good question. And one that we're testing now, it seems. The 3 of them take in a deep breath. But unless those creatures can pick up a rock and throw it at the light bulb from there, then I believe we should be quite safe. The 3 let out their deep breaths, Then after a minute they see the gome retreat off into another direction, looking for easier prey, and all begin coughing, sneezing, blowing their noses, and breathing a sigh of relief as long as the lights shine. Tom tells everyone, "I think we're safe. The lights go all around the whole house, and unless they can tunnel or fly, then that should keep them at bay during the night." But now there's even more urgency to him to explain what he has in mind, now that they've all seen real monsters on the loose just outside their door. He finally gets everyone to settle down and begins to explain more clearly of his vision, or maybe more of a quest, as the logical survival side of his mind pieced together all the pieces of this puzzle that he started to create the moment he pressed the B key. Tom now knows their only logical course of action is the one he had prepared for, that none of his friends could ever have imagined would be possible. He begins to explain. "And now I have a way for us to get out of here. I've been able to expand the tachyon wormhole field to grab everything within a determined distance from the telescope, something I call a tachyon bubble. What we do is first find a planet we want to transport to, and a place where we want to land. Then I push this key here, and the tachyon wormhole lens locks on to where we want to go, which it then pulls everything from here, in a reverse effect that quickly transports everything to there at the speed of sight. Simply put, that's it in a nutshell." Jaws drop as they absorb what they just heard their genius friend tell them. They attack.
I can't scream. I can't scream.
Billy Bob Bill back here with you again, and it's 10:45 on this warm evening, and you're listening to radio station MOORS, the big one here on Dartmoor. And this last track I played was Can't Scream by Ear Candy from their ever-popular 1995 album Tasting, 123 Tasting. And now it's time for a little bit of mind music, and their big hit, What It's All About. Enjoy.
Mrs. Trevelli is in her kitchen doing some late-night dishwashing in the kitchen sink and looking out of the open window in front of her as she cleans up. She can barely see her backyard as it's bathed in only the dim light of a 40-watt yellow porch bulb, which is to keep the flying bugs from entering into the house, and beyond her backyard are the moors. There's a child's swing set in the yard, and a 1997 Citroen car with the right front bumper being supported by a wrenched-up jack stand, as the tire was removed to repair it flat and won't be put back on till tomorrow. Mrs. Trevelli is now finished with the washing up and has turned off the radio, but as she is closing the window she hears something, or some things, moving about on the gravel driveway where the Citroen is parked, but can't yet see anything. She peers hard into the dark and listens as closely as possible for any sound. Then, a horrible shriek of a scream is heard. It's nothing like she's ever heard before here on the moors, so quickly runs out to see what it was with a flashlight in hand as her outside light needs to be replaced. Her husband, who was sitting on the loo upstairs, also heard the scream, so he quickly submits the paperwork to go see what all the commotion is about and what caused it. When he gets outside in the backyard, he sees his wife standing by the car with her torch pointed at the ground. It's illuminating something that's beginning to burn or melt away from the light shining on it, as the car was knocked off its jack stand by a gome, curious of what it was, causing the wheel to land atop another gome that was looking at where the missing tire goes. That part landed on its chest or middle part of its body, killing it within seconds, but not before screaming out in pain. The other creatures feel the loss of one of their own, so freeze where they are to assess the situation. The husband looks down.
Bloody hell, Sandra, where did that stinking thing come from?
Bending over to see it closer.
What the hell is it? Never seen anything like that up here on the moors before.
Their 10-year-old twin sons are awoken, hearing their parents scream from pain and agony below their bedroom window in the backyard, and quickly run out to see what has happened. But by the time they arrive, their parents are silent, being eaten up by the gomes. The two boys try to chase them away, but are quickly overwhelmed and are now being fed upon by hungry creatures with a ravenous appetite for mankind. Within 5 minutes they're finished, and only the white bones of their victims remain somewhat intact next to the fallen car, and most of the dead Gome is gone as it was also eaten.
Here's a choice of food and drink to satisfy anyone and everyone. You'll find something to please you to add to your evening's enjoyment. Something to please all tastes and age groups.
Yes, there's an air about hot coffee that's hard to resist. Full-bodied, refreshing hot coffee makes any time a pleasant interlude. Won't you have some now?
Martin Music Center carries a complete line of the finest musical instruments and supplies. Exclusive dealer for Hammond, Cable and Melloid Grand, organs and pianos. Let Russ Parrish, manager, or Earl Nicola show you the beautiful new models of Hammond organs. Class instruction by the talented teaching staff makes learning easy and fun. So for all of your musical needs, visit Martin's Music Center, 537 North Columbus Street.
Is everybody happy? Then let's go. It's showtime.
They now move back onto the dark moors and head north for about a mile, moving along behind the homes and businesses that run along the B3212 until they reach the back of the parking lot of the Plume of Feathers pub. Within the dark, where the shadows exist, is where the Gome are hiding, and they see and smell the 4 humans sitting at an outside table and having drinks and conversation. Above where they're sitting is the only light shining down on this area, but the light is holding them back from attacking, so collectively they work out how to disable it. The Gome have 100 million years of evolution behind them, which has given these creatures an ability to work out how to create what they need as a group that will help them to survive. So with a collective mental force of the 192 Gomes, they for the first time try to focus a mental beam of thought at the light bulb. As they do so, they generate a whirring, buzzing sound that the people can hear.
Where the fuck is that awful piercing noise coming from?
Then suddenly the light bulb explodes and it goes dark. The noise also stops, and it's now dead quiet for about 5 seconds. Then the agonizing, painful screams of death are heard, as many hard cartilage tentacles pierce the people's bodies and begin sucking all of their tissue, fluid, and flesh through them as the feast begins. Suddenly, a car approaches, and as it gets closer, the photons of its headlights begin striking some of the Gome, causing what we would call their skin to burn. But the Gome are as quick as Ree's lightning when need be, and scatter so fast that the driver of the cars barely got a look at them. Always hungry until fully grown and ready to give birth to the next generation, the deadly alien animals know where there's more food, and now know how to disable the lights that surround it. Time is up. Barely now coughing and sneezing, Carrie, John, and Ryoko have now had time to digest what Tom had told them of his plans, and after seeing how the Gome wanted to try and get them, along with what they have been watching on the news channels and live feeds on the internet with Facebook and YouTube, have agreed that their only course of survival is to somehow get to somewhere safe. With so many Gome on the loose, and the smelly contagion that has been spreading, realize there is no safe place to go to in this part of the country or anywhere else. It's happened too quickly, and some kind of antidote has yet to be found. They all agree the only possible answer is the unbelievable one Tom has told them he intends to do. He explains that if he's to find any kind of answer in which to save the people of planet Earth, then he's going to need help from a far superior civilization, and says he's found one when searching earlier on a planet 123 light years from Earth, and it will take them no time to get there. If he could turn back the hands of time, he would do so, but doesn't believe it's possible, so seeking help is the only logical answer to pursue. These 4 friends discuss the reality of their situation and the fact that they all share a lot of commonalities.
One being that they have no other family due to the world each of them was born into, but now have that added advantage that can help them to survive this ordeal and boost the courage they'll need. Tom has also explained that his inventions are way beyond anything of what the public knows today, and when they're ready to travel, the whole house will be hermetically sealed by an impenetrable tachyon energy bubble that the cold fusion reactor and guidance aligner can create so that the telescopic Voyager can take them anywhere it can see. With a continuous oxygen-making machine along with a well-stocked larder, he tells them that they can exist for at least a year if need be. He's also created a water conversion machine so they'll have plenty to drink. He goes on to say that none of this was planned, but mistakes are made throughout the universe, and sadly this was one of them. But nothing ever happens for no reason at all, and sometimes that reason isn't fully seen for some time after. Suddenly, from outside the window, they begin hearing a sharp whirring sound and see the dome have returned. One of the lights is blown out, and the dome are focusing on the other one now. Tom realizes what the dome has been able to do and tells John to open the window so they don't break the glass all over the floor, and to defend when they start to try and enter with a flashlight and a long broom handle he is given, as it will take 20 seconds to engage the Voyager to leave this place. The second light is blown out, and the Gome now start climbing up the wall to get another free meal, and only give off the vile, deadly smell after they have just eaten. So they must be stopped before any of them become Gome food. Suddenly, one of them appears at the window, and with the flashlight taped to the broom handle so John can poke the creature with its full potential, goes for the first Gome. The light blinds it as the stick is thrusted into its head and falls back down onto the ground dead. Not to be wasted, the others quickly begin to feed upon its corpse, but this does not stop the others from trying to again attack the four friends. The girls are just as frightened, but Carrie grabs another stick to help John as Ryoko covers her eyes. Just a few more seconds, Tom tells him as he presses the R key. Another two Gomes now reach the window and are looking in and beginning making a noise to blow out the lights inside the room. John and Carrie together begin poking at the Gome, then more show up just outside the window, which they'll not be able to defend against. Finally, Tom depresses the G key, and just as the Gome is preparing to launch itself into the room, a great flash of light appears and the tachyon energy bubble materializes around the whole house, instantly disintegrating all the Gome as the whole of Tom's house disappears into a ball of light. But the contagion will continue to spread. Everyone is frozen where they stand as they travel through the universe at a speed best described as the blink of an eye, and arrive on a planet Tom had programmed for them to go to. John and Carrie lunge forward as if the Gome were still at the window, then quickly realize they're gone, and all of a sudden it's daylight outside. Ryoko removes her hands from her eyes and sees it's daytime. John, now realizing what just happened, checks himself to make sure all his bits are still intact, and together Tom's three friends ask, "Where are we?" As they look out the window and see they are no longer on Dartmoor. And what they do see is like no place they've ever seen on Earth. Tom gets their attention and explains, "This is a place where I can find an answer to heal the Earth from my mistake. We're on a planet the people here call Firma, in a galaxy that's yet to be discovered from Earth, and like Earth, there are a number of different races of people that inhabit this planet, but there are no kings or queens or any real government to speak of, nor are there any military, so these people never have wars or conflicts because of selfish greed like what the few rich on Earth have continued to generate for thousands of years without true peace breaking out instead. When a species discovers intergalactic space travel, they have no reason to attack another civilization. Because there is real peace here, citizens are well educated and well off, for there is no poverty or illness, as everybody has what they need to live happy, comfortable lives, free from anyone who would want to take that away from them, and there is never any overpopulation. When you do for others, others do for you, because honest self-pride is priceless, making fear useless. Sadly, still on Earth, it is fear that has allowed greed and selfishness to flourish and be used as a type of weapon to control the people for the few who perpetrate fear to rule. It's been a long time since I was last here. Welcome to Firma, the place of my birth."